Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most kind, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds. We send our peace and blessings upon the final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his family, his companions, and all those who follow in his footsteps until the day of judgment. Brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, friends, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before we proceed with the program, I would like to call upon Imam Anis al-Haq, Imam al-Khatib of the Eastern Mosque, to recite a few verses from the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب الجحيم.
It is an honor to be standing in front of you tonight as we gather to remember and reflect on a somber chapter in our shared human history, the Srebrenica Genocide. On behalf of the Eastern Mosque and London Muslim Centre, I extend a warm welcome to each of you who has taken the time to join us for this significant event this evening. Tonight we come together not just as individuals, but as a community united in our commitment to remember the victims of Srebrenica, to honor their memory, and to reaffirm our dedication to peace, justice, and humanity. The Srebrenica Genocide, which occurred in July 1995, stands as one of the darkest moments in modern European history. Over 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were brutally murdered in what has been recognized as the worst atrocity in European soil since World War II. The pain and loss endured by the families and communities affected by this tragedy are beyond comprehension. And their resilience in the face of such profound sorrow is nothing short of remarkable. As we gather here this evening, we are reminded of the importance of solidarity, compassion, and mutual respect. This mosque and Islamic center, a beacon of faith and community, symbolizes the values that bind us together, values that are essential in preventing such atrocities from ever occurring again. We are here to remember, but also to learn. By understanding the events that led to the genocide and the consequences that followed, we strengthen our resolve to stand against hatred, intolerance, and discrimination in all its forms. It's through education and remembrance that we can ensure never again is not just a promise, but a reality. Unfortunately, what we see happening around the world today doesn't reflect that we have learnt from the atrocities of 1995. Tonight, we will hear from esteemed speakers who will share their insights, experiences, and reflections on Srebrenica. Their voices will guide us in our collective journey of remembrance and reflection. So let us listen with open hearts and minds, and let us be inspired to take action in our own lives and communities to promote peace and unity. We're pleased that we have with us very distinguished guests. We have with us, of course, the Ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina, His Excellency Osman Topcagic, who will be presenting the keynote speech at the end of this program. We also have with us Dr. Abdullah Faliq, who is a trustee of the East London Mosque and the London Muslim Centre, and a pioneer of this remembering Srebrenica Genocide program. We also have with us online Sister Sehija Dedovic, and she's joining us from Bosnia live through Zoom link, and she'll be speaking to us shortly. You may have seen on our publicity that we were going to be joined by Reverend Alan Green, but unfortunately he had to give a very last-minute apology due to an unforeseen circumstance, and he's unable to join us, so he gives his sincere apologies for today's program. So without any further delay, I would like to call upon our first speaker, Sister Sehija Dedovic, and she will be speaking on Srebrenica Genocide, women's vital role in raising global awareness. Just as a brief introduction, she is a remarkable individual dedicated to women's education and empowerment. Sister Sehija Dedovic is a founder and director of the Center for Education and Research, Nahla, which is based in Srebrenica. Her journey, beginning as a refugee during Bosnian War, led her to come back to Sarajevo with a mission to support women. In the year 2000, she founded Nahla, an organization serving over 10,000 women annually with educational programs, support service, and research initiatives. So please join me in welcoming Sister Sehija Dedovic to share her thoughts and reflections.
Thank you. Thank you for introduction. I just need to correct a bit that our organization is settled in 3 cantons, Sarajevo, Tuzla, and Bihać, but unfortunately not yet in Srebrenica. It is in Sarajevo with headquarters, just for remark. And dear attendees and distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. For organizers, thank you for invitation me, and thank you for choosing this topic and bringing again a role of women, which is really not to be compared with the role of any other factors or any other institutions in after-war period concerning the Srebrenica issue and genocide issue. Which led even to the recognition on the highest level of UN General Assembly, as we know, in the last May. But before we speak about it, something I want to express my personal sense of support when I see that somebody outside of Bosnia and Herzegovina has been marking this day and spreading the truth about it for so long, so intensively and consistently, reminding, warning, and alerting about what happened in Srebrenica and what led to genocide, like your center or your organization. And that's why I'm really delighted and very grateful that I have chance for the second time to address or share with you some of my feelings and maybe my impressions about what really women did, or one part of it, of course. I believe that these messages, as our presenter said in the beginning, have never been more needed than in this time when we hear such political messages that really can once again sow the seeds of hatred in the hearts of people who are living together today, and that Srebrenica can be on so many different levels, great lessons for us, what real can be consequences of that seeds. Coming back to the role of women, me as coming from woman, as a woman which comes from the country where genocide was committed, and as someone who has been leading this non-governmental organization for more than 25 years, and working with both direct and indirect victims of genocide, I can really say that women of Srebrenica or mothers of Srebrenica, whatever we have this common name for them, have been a source of our admiration and inspiration for all these years. And they continue to do that with the strength, how they moved forward, how they gathered the remaining of the family members, how they raised them without hatred, but they raised them to remember and to remind others how to live and how to remember lessons and not let Srebrenica be forgotten. But there are so deep feelings and in so different aspects which we can really transfer this message for many years. But not less important in this moment that this year I really also wanted to strengthen on this aspect, that not only on their personal level, that they looked forward and they found the strength to continue and to follow and to look to the horizons and the future and to raise the generations on that. But also the important rule which they did is that they constantly and tirelessly worked to on these issues which in the beginning were needed the first to somehow ensure that their communities, their families accept this rule, that they will be engaged in so many different social processes. They needed also to compel our own government, Bosnian government, and Bosnian institutions in the beginning to take them seriously and to really take this issue very seriously, even that after war Bosnia needed in so many fields after war to have focus. I can share with you my experience that with Mothers of Srebrenica, I traveled in the early 2000, in the beginning of 2000 to Srebrenica for the first time. It was nothing there. It even was not allowed to bury their family members, which they have been found. In the beginning, it was very few of them have been found. The EU forces, which had a mandate in Bosnia at the time, needed to escort us to that place. It was very dangerous to travel to there, even it was 5 years after war, after Dayton. Their own families, many of them were suspected, and our institution were not very much accepting the idea to have the memorial or to have buried, to have the cemeteries there, to help them to force the international community to bring more help to find the remains of their beloved ones and so on. And I traveled with some of these mothers, how much they believed in that idea, how much they believed in that moment that nobody believed. Nobody believed, but also infrastructure were not at all showing the signs that it will be possible. But they really have been very strong in that moment and very dedicated, believing that they will not give up. So from that time to today, they passed a lot of stages, a lot of efforts every day and every minute of their lives. I can witness that it was really struggle to set up support groups in between them, to commemorate the victims and retelling again and again their traumas to everyone willing to listen, including queens, presidents, prime ministers, diplomats, journalists. They didn't miss any chance to do something against and again to tell that story, to really make it visible. And then also they were very much aware in the beginning that alone they will not be able to do that. So they organized themselves into the civil society organizations, into non-governmental organizations, and not one, but it was, let us say, a few tens of those organizations. They didn't fight between each other. They just completed each other. They have been in different towns and connecting very much for the same issue. Some of them more or less visible, but all of them were very important. And then when we see that after all, that all these efforts at the end resulted not only, of course, with the UN General Assembly resolution on Srebrenica from this May, but also somehow resulted with also the issue that today, these days, and this day will be, and this issue will be known in all schools all around the world, that they brought to the court all these perpetrators and evidence and so on. So this role which they played is really an immeasurable role in collecting evidence, both material and immaterial, encouraging witnesses of the genocide to testify, what was by itself very, very complicated and very much psychologically and the time and resourcefully very much demanding step. But without that step, was not possible to bring to the court, especially in Hague, and to ensure that justice is served and the truth about Srebrenica genocide will never be forgotten. Also, in seeking information about the secondary and tertiary graves was until today, which in fact was the effort from the first day after Dayton until today, and which led that now 29 years later we have more than 7,000 and 6,700 bodies have been buried, and yesterday we just bid farewell to remains of 14 victims who have been identified and will find their final resting place tomorrow in Potocari. So every year this effort is still going on, and it's still there. So for me, and I would like to somehow conclude, this is really most important lesson, and there are so many lessons which I really recommend to learn from our mothers of Srebrenica. For these 30 years, they have been really source of courage, and the lesson which we as organization, which maybe when you are looking to our references, to our achievements, you may say that we achieved something, but that strength and the continuous and persistent work to believe in the mission and in the cause, I really maybe until today never met on that level like in mothers and sisters or women of Srebrenica. This woman had a choice, and I think that every one of us many times in our lives has a choice. So this woman, when surrounded by the death and disappear, they could choose to stay and to be desperate and to stay in that, because really they had all conditions to stay, and very, very small encouragement to or reasons to go out of that, because many of them lost more than 30, 40 and 50 members of families. But they choose differently. They choose to do what they could in that moment for the future, to help to bring perpetrators to justice, as I said, to ensure that new generation somehow as a kind of emana or as a kind of trust from for those victims, to do something that their sacrifice was not will not be empty or will not be forgotten. So to ensure that those lessons from Srebrenica will not be forgotten, that those lessons will be passed over to prevent such evil from the happening in future. So I feel that they really choose a future with a real and strong standing on the earth, with their complete understanding on what they are standing, that cannot be changed. But they did their best to send a message which maybe can prevail it in somewhere else. I believe, and we all witnessed, that their struggle was successful and that gave so many results.
It's very powerful reminder. I mean, the women and the sisters in Bosnia during that struggle, it wasn't just the men and the boys that were being murdered. The experience of the sisters has been a very traumatic one, of course, and their struggle and their story of resilience is something that inspires us all. But post-war, the role that they played was a vital one to bring justice and to ensure that the truth of this genocide is never forgotten, and the women of Bosnia are still playing this very important role, both within the country and globally at the United Nations level as well. So we are very grateful to Sister Sehija for her presentation. Our next presentation will be by Dr. Abdullah Faliq, and he will be looking at the lessons from Srebrenica, ensuring justice and accountability. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Abdullah Faliq, a trustee of the East London Mosque Trust. Dr. Abdullah Faliq has been at the forefront of promoting intercultural understanding and cooperation. He has been leading advocate to peace and reconciliation in Bosnia, particularly through his passion for remembering Srebrenica and honoring the victims of genocide. So without any further delay, I'd like to call upon Dr. Abdullah Faliq to make his presentation.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam rasul kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. Your Excellency the Ambassador, Brother Junaid, Sister Sehija, who I've known for 20 odd years, and the congregation here, thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's a tough call because of the England match later on, but I think you're here because of an important cause, an important issue, and that is Srebrenica. 29 years on, we're still talking about it because the injustice still prevails. In my brief 2-3 minutes, I'm not going to cover everything because of time. I'll quickly give 1 or 2 anecdotes to make some points and some observations at the end. First of all, just want to let you know that one member of the audience sitting here is Brother Muhammad Habibur Rahman, sitting in the 3rd row. He's a former chairman of the East London Mosque. He was the first to visit Bosnia during the conflict, during a brief lull in the fighting. He went with a delegation of other Muslim leaders in Bosnia then. This was our first direct contact with the Bosnian community when they were at their worst situation. Later on, fast forward in 2001, I was graced enough to go with the British Foreign Office to Bosnia as part of a Muslim delegation. Brother Saifuddin from Muslim Aid, the CEO, he was also there. That trip was an eye-opener for me personally, because we met people, we met survivors, we met warriors, we met scholars, we met women, we met young people. All were full of wisdom, braveness and principle. What I took from that trip was amazing, because on the one hand, there are a lot of negative points, a lot of sorrow. They told me that they felt isolated by the international community, especially the Muslim Ummah. When they were being butchered, massacred, Muslims abandoned them. That was a feeling by the Bosnian Muslims. They say, we are Muslims, we declare the Shahada, but where are the Muslims? So this feeling was very strong, and I heard it from everyone that I visited then. I also reflected on the situation here in Britain at the time, when we were growing up in the 80s and the 90s, especially during the conflict with Bosnia. We watched the scenes on TV and the news of the harrowing images of people being shot point blank. People being released as if they're free, but then they're shot again. The scenes in Topcagic in Srebrenica, we saw them on the screens. And this was happening in the heart of Europe, 2 hours flight from London or Luton. This was really unimaginable. You didn't think this could happen in this day and age, but this was happening. So naturally, some Muslims here in Britain felt Bosnia today, Britain tomorrow. A massacre, a genocide of some scale would happen in the UK. Because remember then, the National Front, the racist groups were quite strong back then. So these feelings were very prevalent. So my trip then was an eye-opener, in the sense that I felt an obligation to do something about that. And they say in Bosnia, if you drink from the springs of Bosnia, you fall in love with the country. I had drank from that spring of Bosnia, water coming down from the mountains on the lake, and I drank with no cups or anything, just with your hand. And I felt immediately attached. The water was so pure, so nice, better than mineral water. And I said, and I committed, I will go back and do work for Bosnia. Since then, with the help of the East London Mosque, the Cordoba Foundation, the Muslim Council of Britain, the Bosnia Heritage Trust, and others, we've been doing various events and campaigns for the last 24 years or more. These kind of events, sending people, delegations, media, interfaith, raising funds, campaigns, peace walks. We've been doing that for the last 24 years with our partners. And alhamdulillah, today is one another event. And it needs to be done. And these partners are also continuing the work now. And now we see more people raising their awareness about Bosnia, about Srebrenica, when before there was not much around. Let me give you a couple of anecdotes. I remember when I went to Srebrenica first time, there was a janazah of over 700 bodies. You come to this mosque, we pray janazah, one person, two person. You feel so low, you feel so down, you don't know what to do. The highest number of janazah in this mosque at any one time is probably 5. But there, imagine 700 bodies brought to you in front of you, lined up on the ground, with the families crying, weeping after so many years. That emotion you can't manage, you can't compute. The next year I went, 500. Year after, 400. Every year, hundreds of bodies. These are shuhada, these are martyrs. And when you see the families after so many years trying to reconcile, trying to find some sense of closure, you try to help put some soil in the grave. You pray the janazah, there's no space. When I was praying first time, there was no place to do ruku' or sajda. You had to pray on the back of a person in front of you, standing. This was how many people there were, probably about 100,000 first time round, in the heat. But you see all of this, the people finally trying to find some closure to their families. And what happened to the bodies? When the war happened, Ambassador will probably touch on that. The Bosnian Serbs, they not only massacred the Bosnian Muslims, they took some of the bodies, put them on trucks, drove in different parts of the country. They dismembered parts of the body, they cut them in different parts. They chucked them in different areas, different mass graves, in order not to be identified. They did that deliberately to avoid detection of the bodies. This is why it's taken time, so many years, 29 years on, that people are trying to put together the body pieces through DNA, clothes and whatever else they have on them. And then if they're certain this is the person, they return the body to the family. And tomorrow they'll be burying 14 of them. It took 29 years. So this is the situation in Bosnia. And in that janazah, when you go there, you see what else happens in the world like this. It's not comparable. Same time, and the gates of Srebrenica, Topcagic, where the cemetery is, you have Bosnian Serbs coming with banners protesting, saying these are lies, these are fakers, it's not true, trying to provoke the people. People are at the highest emotional level, and these people are trying to provoke you. So this is happening. The story too, when I was going to Srebrenica, we were stopped in 3-4 checkpoints. And every checkpoint, the Serbs will shout at you, Milosevic is coming back, be warned. The butcher of Srebrenica, the butcher of Bosnia, they say he's coming back to do more. And these people are still around in Bosnia. They haven't gone away. This is why we're still trying to find the bodies of those who have been killed many, many years ago. So what lessons are there for us to learn from now? I mean, we're very good at issuing platitudes, solidarity, which is very good. But we have to do more than that. We have to go for the long game. And that long game takes time. We see parallels between what's happened in Srebrenica before and what's happening in Gaza now. Ethnic cleansing, targeted assassination, demolition of homes. You saw recently dogs attacking old women. During the conflict, we heard of babies being put through mince machines, deliberately. Mosques being targeted, yet no church was targeted by the Bosnians. I'm also told that it's not all bad. In Sarajevo, the capital city, I was told by some survivors that some of the Serbs who were fighting for the Serb army, 12,000 died. They were killed by the Serbs because they were defending the Bosnian Muslims. Because they were neighbors. They saw these are neighbors, they're good people, but they were killed. So this gives you hope that not everyone is bad. So in terms of lessons, where do we go from now on? The rule of law needs to apply. There are still people around who have not been brought to justice. I know, and I've been told by friends in Bosnia, that there are people walking the streets of Sarajevo who know where certain body parts are. They work as police officers, they work as teachers, but they will not tell you where the body parts are buried. They walk the streets. This is really unfair, unbelievable. This is going on. These people need to be brought to justice. We also have to learn that it's not just a slogan, that we really mean it. If you look at the Rohingya situation, the Uyghurs, Ukraine, Gaza, Kashmir, they all smack of hypocrisy, that we don't really mean that. So what I'm saying to you now is, as a community, as organizations, as charities, we need to do more than just sending condolences and solidarity messages. We have to do more. Alhamdulillah, the Eastern Mosque, working with partners, has been doing a lot of work for the last 24 years, whether it's campaign, whether it's raising awareness and other issues. We need to join this campaign and support them. My final point is, I was with the former Grand Mufti of Bosnia, Dr. Mustafa Seric. He's come to this mosque many a times. He's led the khutbah here also. And he once publicly reprimanded me in a loving way. In 2008, I called him to invite him to London for the Islam Expo, a big event, 4 days in Alexandria Palace. And he said, Abdullah, you're inviting me on 11th of July. Do you know what that date is? I forgot at the time. Then I got a lecture from him. 11th of July is when the Serbs massacred the Bosnians in Srebrenica. How dare you forget? So he told me, he reprimanded me in a loving way. But then he said, Abdullah, you are the cause, and the mosque, Islam Mosque is the cause. I will now lobby the European Parliament. Because until then, the European Parliament did not recognize Srebrenica as a genocide. Britain didn't. None of the countries did. To conclude, so that reprimand from the Grand Mufti led him to try to lobby the European Parliament to recognize Srebrenica genocide as a genocide. And since the year after, from 2009, the European Parliament declared it as a genocide. Since then, you see heads of states from the UK, from Europe, attending the Srebrenica genocide. Alhamdulillah, so that's a good win for us. The second point is, I've talked about a lot of negativities, so a lot of sadness, but there are also positives. You know, Bosnia is a beautiful place for holiday, for visiting. You know, for sports, recreation, it's a destination for all year round. I know many of you have been there, and I encourage more people to go, so the Bosnians feel they're connected. The final point is, tomorrow is the important day for Bosnia. Tomorrow, on the 11th of July, is when those 14 newly identified bodies who were killed 29 years ago will be returned to their families to be buried in Topcagic in Srebrenica. And their names are going to be on the screen now, and I'll finish with this. The youngest of them was, at the time, 17, Beriz Mujiz, and the oldest was 68. They were killed, massacred 29 years ago. Let us remember them, let us pray for them, and let us not forget, inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah Faliq, for this very powerful narrative of your personal experience of visiting Bosnia and engaging with this very important issue of the Srebrenica genocide. And I was also fortunate enough to be part of one of Dr. Abdullah Faliq's delegation, I think in 2001, 2, 3, around that kind of period. And going there and witnessing that is a very powerful and emotional experience. The key lesson I think Dr. Abdullah highlighted is that the rule of law needs to be applied. And never again is just a slogan, but we see that being repeated in different parts of the world. Currently in Palestine, what we're witnessing means that lessons from the genocide of 1995 in Bosnia has not been learnt, and the rule of law is still not being applied. So this is something that we, as individuals, as communities, need to take forward and do our part to speak for justice and seek for the rule of law to be implemented across the world. So without any further delay, I would like to call upon His Excellency Osman Topcagic, to the Ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina, to share his keynote speech.
We are here to commemorate Srebrenica Genocide. Srebrenica happened on 11th of July 1995, and it was culmination of atrocities which were happening during war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. War started at the beginning of 1992 as one of the wars in the process of dissolution of former Yugoslavia. Neighboring countries of Bosnia and Herzegovina have their minorities within Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they wanted to take territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, actually partition the country. Aggression started as early as Bosnia and Herzegovina proclaimed its independence, recognized by European community at that time, European Union today, United States, and other countries in the world. So together with independence, the biggest challenge, the big problem started for us to defend the country without means to defend ourselves, because earlier arms embargo was imposed on the whole of Yugoslavia, but actually only Bosnia and Herzegovina suffered from that, because Bosnia and Herzegovina is practically landlocked country. During that war, 100,000 people were killed. 2 million people were expelled during process known as ethnic cleansing from territories where Muslims, Bosniaks, were majority, and many of them finishing in other countries out of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But as such aggression was evolving, we never asked, and when we were witnessing such victims, we never asked for revenge. We always asked for justice to be met. And very early during war, we asked for international tribunal to be established to process crimes committed during war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that's what's called International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, established in The Hague. It took some time for tribunal first resolutions of Security Council to formally be established, but also to provide finances, to hire judges, prosecutors, other staff, and so on to start working. We were collecting evidence from people who were witnessing. And fortunately enough, with a lot of efforts, support of other countries, that tribunal started working. But it didn't prevent those who were committing crimes to continue with that. As I said, culmination happened during attack on Srebrenica and fall of Srebrenica on 11th of July. All women were expelled, all men were collected, systematically killed, buried in mass graves, and then in order to hide that, they were taken from those graves with construction machinery, bulldozers, and so on. That's how bodies were dismembered, buried to secondary mass graves, sometimes to third places, all in order to hide what they did. That's why we still are searching for a few hundred bodies which cannot be found. We don't know places where they are buried, or that's why families only find some bones of their relatives who were killed during war. But this situation finally provoked intervention of international community, which then led to the peace talks and conclusion of peace agreement towards the end of the 1995. The country administration created was quite complex, reflecting first ethnic composition of population in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also territorial arrangements. But what was important, one part of peace agreement was return of refugees. And all people who were expelled from their properties had right to return. Some of them returned physically to live there, some of them didn't return to live, but they were returned their properties. So they either possessed it or changed it or sold it, but that's characteristic of this peace agreement compared to some other conflict situation in the world, that people had right and many of them returned, not all of them, and properties were returned to people. Bosnia and Herzegovina, as it was established or defined, let me say, with peace agreement, with such complex structure, many believe didn't have a big future, couldn't function as a state. But in spite of that, we succeeded in making certain progress, and specifically towards membership in European Union. People supported that idea, and that helped, that process of joining European Union, requirements from that process helped to establish certain institutions, introduce practices, adopt legislation, and Bosnia and Herzegovina today is candidate country for membership in European Union, with decision from the European Union to open negotiations on membership. Earlier we signed association agreement, which enables free trade between European Union and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we also, as citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, got visa-free regime with European Union. That's something which helps economy, which helps tourism, which helps young people to travel for education and in many other areas. And that's very important achievement, which I want to say. But in parallel with people, institutions being involved and working on fulfilling criteria for formal opening of negotiations with the EU, there are those within Bosnia and Herzegovina who are again working on partition of the country. Formal proposal was submitted a few days ago from Republika Srpska on partitioning of Bosnia and Herzegovina. More and more we hear negation of crimes committed during war. We see and witness glorification of those leaders who organized war crimes during the war. In spite of ruling of International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, and in spite of ruling International Court of Justice, both of them found that genocide was committed in Srebrenica. And to confirm that fact, we approached General Assembly of United Nations. This year in May, General Assembly adopted resolution on Srebrenica, proclaiming that 11th of July should be day of remembering victims of Srebrenica and day of organizing different events to honor victims and give consolation to their families. They also called in their paragraphs to establish programs of education, something that you are doing here, and I could see it's done throughout this country on some other universities and other places. In preparation of this resolution, I need to say United Kingdom government played important role as supporter of resolution. They were voting in favor, but exactly what was asked through this resolution is already being done in this country through this organization, Remembering Srebrenica, through different events, education programs, visits to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and specifically to Srebrenica. And I hope that first that it will continue in this country, and also that other countries will establish such practice. Why is it important? And that's, I think, the main lesson from all of this. As they say here, for evil to happen, it's enough for good men to do nothing. We need to recognize situation. We need to act once we recognize situation which leads to some troubles, problems, or even genocide, as was this case here. So to finish this formal introduction, I will call you first to visit Bosnia and Herzegovina, those who didn't, who did, bring your friends, bring your more members of your family, come and see Bosnia, as everybody tells me, is a beautiful country, and I agree. And also, I repeat, be of those good men who do something to prevent evil to happen. That's the most important. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Osman Topcagic, for giving us an overall picture of what happened and what has happened since the genocide in 1995. There has been some progress, as we see, but there is still a lot of struggle. One of the biggest lessons of history is that people don't learn from history. The reason for organizing events like this is that we're able to, as I said at the outset, not just remember the atrocities that happened in 1995, but take lesson and be inspired to do whatever we can as individuals and communities to speak for justice, speak for truth, wherever it may be. And events like this allows us to come together and recommit ourselves to this cause of justice. Before I kind of open up the floor, let me just, you may have seen the stall there, No Place for Hate, Tahamlet's No Place for Hate. We're here at the East London Mosque are very proud to work in partnership with our colleagues in Tahamlet's No Place for Hate to speak out for justice and against any sort of hate and discrimination. And I think we as a community need to really kind of step up on this side of our commitment. It's something that we all witness, but how much do we as individuals do and as a community to speak for justice, speak against discrimination, speak against hate crime? One of the things that we know is that even within the UK, the hate crime reporting amongst the Muslim community is still very low. That's almost being passive to the injustice that we see in society. So right from our local duties and responsibilities, and then moving on to the national level and international level, I think we all need to play our part. So thank you very much, Ambassador, for those insights and reflection. I'd like to now open the floor up. If you have any questions for the panel, both our panel members, Dr. Abdullah Faliq, as well as Ambassador, to take, or if you have visited Bosnia and if you have any reflections that you feel will be helpful for the audience, you may also share those reflections. I can see one hand here, so we'll take that question first.
Assalamu alaikum. Khalid Nur, lawyer and former councillor at Peace Council. So first of all, thank you very much for East London Mosque and Abdullah Faliq to organizing this important event. And I remember I'm almost every year, probably I'm trying my best to, whenever I receive invitation to attend. And my suggestion leading to this attendance as well, specifically, whenever I come, this is a very important event, as we're living in a society and the time where is a victim blaming, double standard and injustice become taking root. But as you said, that in our community need to be educated, and Your Excellency clearly mentioned that you recognize and educate and celebrate and take this forward. I think it's very important in here that we need to reach out to our community members. Those need to be learn and educate. We are living in East London, east of London. There is a community member come from Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Gujarat, another part. I want to see this kinds of event next year with 30th years of, inshallah, we're celebrating. It's not celebration by remembering them and learning the lesson. I want a specific 3 suggestions in here, that this event should be organized such a way that whole community is involved. Not just like Murabbis, scholars, and those educated people are coming in here, because those are coming in here and they all know a little bit of history. But those doesn't know this history, it is our responsibility to teach them. And I mean that community member, political leader, students, and children. Second part, we need to publicize this event. And within our community, whether it is Bangladeshi community, Pakistani community, Gujarati community, other communities, minority communities, we have hundreds and hundreds of media. I'm very disappointed to see that there's not a single media in here for Bangladeshi community, any other community or mainstream media. It is something I think I would say that I will, with due respect, criticize the organizer that this needs to be looked into, and I think the next event should be, I want to see thousands of people coming in here, at least 100 media there. The final point is I want to say specifically that there should be some sort of exhibition, not only photo exhibition, some documentaries and films. And if this is something need to be organized and members involved, community member, business leader, lawyers, and I would be happy to take part, inshallah. Thank you. Jazakallah khairan.
Great, thank you very much. Some very important suggestions that we'll take on board. Yes, sister.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My question is to the ambassador. What is the current relationship between the Bosnian government and the Serbian government?
We have diplomatic relations. We have, let me say, contacts in cooperation in different fields, but we have also differences. And that's mostly about relation of Serbian government with Republika Srpska, which is part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and declaration which they recently adopted on their relations and their cooperation, which we believe undermines state authority of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But on number of issues we cooperate. As I say, on some issues we do not agree, and remains to be further discussed and talked and to overcome all that. In our position regarding specifically this resolution and Srebrenica case and situation which appeared during this process of discussion and adoption of resolution in the United Nations, we insisted, and we still insist, on recognition and acceptance of ruling of international judicial institutions, ICTY, International Court of Justice. We believe there is no need to discuss about rulings of the courts. We can only implement. And all countries are obliged, according to the UN, implement rulings of International Court of Justice. Let's see what will happen. But fortunately, that's also rule of law is one condition in joining European Union. So all countries in the region, including Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia, want to join European Union. In this process, we need to prove that we have rule of law, and as I say, that in our understanding means also implementation of international judicial institutions. Yeah,
Thank you. We have a question right at the back, and then we'll come to the front and the middle again.
So I just want to find out, so next month, inshallah, I'll be going to Bosnia for the first time. But I'd like to find out what are potentially 3 things that I should look out for when visiting the country, inshallah.
Yeah, first, it's easy now to travel to Bosnia because there are daily flights, either from Luton or from Stansted. And then those are flights to Sarajevo, and certainly you can spend day, 2-3 days in Sarajevo. Srebrenica is recommended, that it's really something you will remember for your life. Mostar and that area around Mostar is recommended, and I would take train trip to Mostar because that scenery is really remarkable, beautiful, and advertised in one of the most beautiful train trips in Europe, probably, because it goes through canyon of River Neretva, which is itself beautiful and beautiful. I like myself area which is central Bosnia, that's area of Travnik towards Jajce and further to Bihać. And I recommend that area. But wherever you go, nature, scenery is really beautiful. You can visit Olympic mountains. We had Olympic Games in Bosnia and Herzegovina earlier. In winter time, hopefully there will be snow and it's good for skiing. In winter time, you can walk, see, and enjoy grass and fresh air in those mountains. It's really breathtaking nature. So wherever you go, you will enjoy it, I'm sure. Hospitality, good food, and everything else there in Bosnia. Yeah. Thank you.
It's absolutely a beautiful country. I'll be going again as well in August. So, but I didn't know the train journey to Moscow is so beautiful. I've got my travel arranged already. So, but next time will be a train journey to Moscow. We come to the front.
I've been to Bosnia only 3 weeks ago, and I would highly recommend visiting the place. I took my family, my 2 boys. Can I look towards the audience?
Yeah.
I took my 2 boys, who were 20 and 16, and when we went to Sarajevo, Srebrenica, my boys, you've all seen teenagers, they constantly chat, they look at their phones and all that stuff. My boys were focused at the environment. My wife was in tears, I was in tears. For 6 hours, we didn't talk between ourselves. All we did was hug each other. We met the mothers of Srebrenica there, and it was a powerful experience. They shared their stories with us, and the one thing I take away from her conversation was she said, thank you. She was constantly thanking me for being there, acknowledging that people outside Srebrenica are aware of them and listening to them and supporting them. That's all she wanted. Somebody that outside of the area is acknowledging that the loss she's had. She's lost her mum's side of the family and her husband's side of the family. She's the only living person. She took us to the graves. We prayed next to the graves with her, and then she moved to her husband's side of the family, and we saw 7 graves that belonged to her father's side, her husband's side of the family. It was such a powerful experience.
Thank you very much. That's really, really important.
Assalamu alaikum, Talha. I've been 7 times in the last 2 years. And I think when you do drink water from River Bosna or any of the spring, you do fall in love with this country. Very quickly, 2 things I want to highlight, and in future I hope you'll also focus. Every time we think of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we think of this genocide. And of course, it's the most horrible thing that has happened in recent years. But Bosnia is so much more than just being a victim of genocide. It has a very rich scholarly heritage, Islamic scholarly heritage, mind-boggling stuff. And I would like to see more of that celebrated and highlighted for people to know and understand. The other issue is the political deadlock because of the arrangement created by Dayton and the imposition of the Office of the High Representative creates opportunities but also many, many challenges. And that one of the challenges it has led to is economic deprivation. I've spent a night in the mountains in Srebrenica, and I've also been in Dedovic and other places. And it's really heartbreaking to see people are so optimistic, yet so little prospect for young people. And so many of us, I think, can contribute to revitalize local economy, to really inject some energy and optimism so that young people do not feel with very good education, they have to leave for Germany and other countries to work in construction and others. So in addition to remembering the victims of genocide, and Srebrenica is just one of many terrible genocides locations, we should also, I think, focus to understand better of the glorious past this country had and the huge potential it has and how we can support that, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thanks ELM for organizing this, and thank you, Ambassador. I had been there twice, once only in Srebrenica, and emotional thing. I wrote something on that. Second time only in Sarajevo. Sorry. I agree with Talha about what Bosnia probably should be trying to do, but until and unless individuals or a community have social, intellectual, political capital, they are not in a position to support. Fortunately, Muslims everywhere are in that situation. We are seeing this genocide for the last nearly 10 months, and Muslim countries cannot do anything, Muslims cannot do anything, the whole world cannot do anything, because perpetrators, survivors, and supporters evils are very, very powerful. So to support Bosnia, which is more or less obligatory for us in Europe, we need to change our personal and community strength. Until you do that, then we'll just be able to make dua and send some charity.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Bari, for your perspective on that. We have a question from the brother there.
I'll actually be visiting Bosnia, inshallah, in this summer along with some friends. It seems like more and more families, friends, amongst the Muslim community, I think it's become like an Islamic destination amongst other areas. So inshallah, look forward to visiting Bosnia. I had quick questions around just doing some kind of research, reading around Bosnia. One was around the decline in the population. It seems like in recent years there is a decline in the population. I was just wondering what the cause for that is. Is this just emigrating into Europe? And secondly was around the role of Islam within the society and generally in Bosnia as a whole. What is that kind of relationship, and what kind of relationship does Bosnia have with other Muslim countries?
Great, thank you very much. Can we take the questions or comment from the sister at the back there, please?
The first comment would be, I would encourage everyone to visit Bosnia. It is beautiful. And in terms of economy and industry, I think we have an obligation to support them. And tourism is a key industry for Bosnia and a growth industry for them. And I would also encourage, if you're looking for clues of what to do, there's a great book called Minarets in the Mountains by Tariq Hussein, which talks about the Balkans in general and the Islamic history there and the places you can visit. So I would say that. Also, go skydiving, go paragliding, go and see some of the key rivers. It's beautiful, subhanAllah. My second comment would be, again, linked to the economy. Muslim Aid does some key livelihood projects in Bosnia, and we have been doing for the last decade, and we have a longer relationship with the country. But I would say, mashallah, we have some great business people in this country and in our communities, and I would say go and invest. We're looking for something to do and ways to support. Let's put our money where our mouth is. So spend your tourism dollars and spend your business dollars, or pounds. And then my last one would be a little bit more serious, I guess, is, we've seen in the last decade in particular, particularly since the refugee crisis, the rise in Christian nationalism, ethno-nationalism, the rise of the far right across Europe. We recently saw in France, Le Pen almost win. We've seen Reform UK win several seats in the UK Parliament. We see Tommy Robinson back on our streets, and hopefully we're going to rise against him. But given that environment, given Bosnia's recent history, what would you advise what can we do? There's certain things that Dr. Bari has said in terms of how we have to increase our social capital, our political capital. But what are concrete things that we can do to come together as a community? Tower Hamlets, mashallah, being very good at doing that, but we have communities across the UK and across Europe that we really need to bring together.
With what happened to the Bosnians in the war, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's an honest question. Do you forgive the Serbs for what they did, and do you think we as a society should forgive one day when Palestine gets free Israel for what they've done? Or is that even a possibility?
Assalamu alaikum. So my question is around the global perception of remembrance. I know there's a United Nations resolution that's been drafted for that, but what's the global attitude? I mean, are other countries recognizing what's happened, or is it just, say, the UK, for example?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, in your presentation, you mentioned there are some demands of partitioning Bosnia. Can you elaborate on that? Who are these forces? What is the basis of this demand? And are there some foreign forces behind it? What are the dangers?
Okay, and the final question, and then we'll...
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting me, especially Brother Abdullah Faliq, and I'm very happy to meet His Excellency, the Ambassador. I would like to recite a verse of Quran al-Kareem. It says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغير ما بأنفسهم. I'm very grateful that we have such events, and I can see the pattern. I am from Afghanistan originally, so we have the same genocides in Afghanistan. If I say my own city, Herat, we have 24,000 martyrs in one day. against the Soviet Union at the time when they invaded our country. I'm wondering then whether these lobbying, these events, and all these 25 years, those people who commit crimes or war crimes in Bosnia, have they become hold account, or what is? I'm also wondering that in the future, if Serbia dared to attack again the Bosnia, is there any force a part of the international community? I mean, inside, because I remember that we have so many free fighters from Afghanistan who came to Bosnia to be in your side. So these two questions I really wonder, and hopefully one day we have also a program for Afghanistan, the same thing against Russia that they have done. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to now ask the Ambassador and Dr. Abdullah, if you want to interject as well for any of these questions, please feel free to do so. But a very quick whistle-stop response almost. The first question was around decline in population.
Yes.
And what's the reason for
yes,
that?
That's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that's happening in other countries in the region. Croatia, for example, joined the European Union. It opened possibility for their people to go to other countries to work. That's challenged a lot of young people, young families accepted. Some going to Ireland. Ireland is these days popular for that, but also to Germany and other countries. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, some people have Croatian citizenship and are entitled to Croatian passport. They can also, based on that, go to European Union and work. Others submit application to German embassy, and many of them really go to Germany or some other countries in Europe. And that's the issue we pay attention. Government is trying to make incentives for young people to stay either in first time buying apartment like here with the policies, or some other incentives for employment and so on, so on. That's the issue, but it's not characteristic only for Bosnia, but I would say for our region, but even wider. So that's one.
Very briefly, role of Islam in society.
Islam?
In society, in Bosnian society.
Yeah, in Bosnia and Herzegovina is multi-ethnic country, multi-religious country. So Muslims, Bosniaks as ethnic group now make 50%, slightly more than 50% of population. Most of them are, in religious sense, Muslims. There is freedom of religion. People attend mosques, fast, do what they need to do as religious people, and that's accepted. I mean, and that's the situation. But I think there was also a question about relation with Muslim countries, other countries. We have well, Bosnia is a small country, but first we enjoyed big support, sympathy, every kind of assistance from practically all Muslim countries during conflict and in post-conflict period. And now we have relations, diplomatic cooperation, some investment in different form of cooperation with number of those countries. I will not name any in order not to forget some, so not to be undiplomatic, but really these are friendly relations, and I probably can mention Turkey, who was ruling this part of Europe, including Bosnia, until towards the end of 19th century, and those links are quite strong. Number of people from Bosnia and Herzegovina for different reasons moved to Turkey to live, and we estimate several million present-day Turkish citizens have roots from Bosnia and Herzegovina or from wider region and so on. So yes, there are relations, there is cooperation, and that's something. Number of people are now buying houses in Bosnia from Arab countries during summertime, because it's mountainous area, nature is rivers, lakes, and all that. They like it during summertime, which can be very hot in their region. But now these days is, I hear, hot in Bosnia as well. Climate change. Yeah.
There was a question around the sentiments in Bosnia in terms of forgiving the Serbs. You mentioned in your presentation about you're not taking revenge but seeking justice.
No.
So,
yeah, it was forgiving I need to say, I think in this country earlier when I was serving, I was faced with that question of forgiving and forgetting. And somehow, I speak personally, I was surprised. Maybe I can share with you, my only sister was killed during war at the door of our house, a civilian. Shelling, shrapnel, and she was killed there. Why should I forgive? And how can I forget? I simply can't connect myself with such feelings. On the other side, I don't feel hatred, and I'm doing nothing for revenge. And I can tell you also, when war finished, during war I was in our situation Secretary General of Foreign Ministry. And I was in the first group of people who went to Belgrade to talk about relations. And the most difficult for me was to answer my mother's question, why do you go there, why don't they come here? But I said, it's for peace. I think it's right thing to go there and to work and talk about our future, joint future. We are neighbors, we have to find a way how to live one by the other and gradually establish links. But I believe in justice, and I believe that those who committed crimes need to be brought to justice, and that society as a whole need to recognize that. And that's what's somehow missing. And that's what I feel is, let me say, frustration also with mothers of Srebrenica and all other victims. Prijedor is another place where there were number of victims. Many people were put to concentration camps and or killed later, and people, number of them came to the UK, and I know some of them. They say when we go back home, we see those people who were torturing us in those concentration camps walking freely around. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. That's somehow missing awareness that what was done was wrong on all sides. I want to say, I mean, I don't want to say one side only is guilty. There were crimes on different sides, but what I want to say clearly, and that's truth, crimes committed from Bosniak side were not organized and were not planned and were not supported by government. Quite contrary, were punished, were prevented in many cases, and we were the first to cooperate with the International Criminal Court for former Yugoslavia. So that's somehow missing in society, that recognition what was done was wrong. Okay, if it's prison sentence, serve prison sentence, if some other form, but that's satisfaction for victims which is missing in all that. I didn't hear of any case of revenge. One of the victims of members of victims' family killing somebody who apparently committed some crimes or killed somebody during war, really.
Great. We're really out of time, so what I'm going to do is just ask...
there was a question about partitioning of the country.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a call from Mr. Dodik, President of Republika Srpska. They prepared even formal paper offering the other entity, which is called Federation, to separate. First, there is no basis in peace agreement in our constitution for separation. That was clear answer from High Representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina and also leading embassies of big international countries, that it's non-negotiable. I mean, that's something which cannot, they call it peaceful separation. That separation cannot be done in a peaceful way. All who knows situation is aware of it. Bosnia and Herzegovina, first article in our constitution and peace agreement is continues to exist, will contain of two entities, and so on, Bosniak, Serbs, Croats living together and making government together and talking about their future. So what's the reason? Because of that we can speculate, but he's undertaking such initiatives, I would say, instead of taking care of economic well-being and prosperity of his entity and people living there.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there's many more questions. Before we conclude, can I just ask Dr. Abdullah Faliq to say a few final concluding remarks, maybe just highlighting some of the practical things that we can also do. I think that was one of the questions as well.
Thank you, Brother Junaid and Ambassador. I'll just mention 3 quick points. First of all, the suggestions and the feedback is very, really good and welcome. I think we need to do more than just meet in the summer. We have to do all year round events and programs and symposiums. And alhamdulillah, there are some plans. In Sarajevo especially, there are a lot of conferences, a lot of camps, intellectual discussions taking place, but we need to do more of that. So I think we should do all year round, not just in the summer. Secondly, let's not sleepwalk into another disaster. We've seen the rise of the far right in Europe and in the UK. We don't know how this government will fare in the greater scheme of things, but we can't afford to wait to be woken up again. We need to prepare. We need to get our communities organized, we need to be realistic, we need to be educated, we need to champion these causes. So I'm saying we just need to be prepared. Let's do that. Finally, last Friday, the Grand Mufti did his Srebrenica khutbah sermon in Sarajevo. And in that speech, is very, very powerful. He talks about justice and forgiveness. And I think we should all try to get some glimpse from that and take some lessons. It's available on, I'm not sure if it's available on the screen here, but if you go to the Cordoba Foundation website, the full speech is there in English. Try to share that and also take lessons. But I just want to thank everyone for coming. You know, yes, it is difficult to get people to come to these events, but these are events happening all over the UK, many hundreds of events such as this. They may be small, but they're growing in numbers. But inshallah, with your support, with the resources, we can make it bigger and much more impactful for the Bosnians, inshallah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you very much, Ambassador. In conclusion, round of applause. In closing, I would like to thank the speakers, the guests, everyone here for attending. It just shows the importance that you place on this agenda and this topic that we've covered today. I'd like to thank the colleagues and the team that have put a lot of effort in putting this program together. Some of you mentioned about finding out quite late about this event. Please go into our website, leave your details, so that in future, when we do organize events, you'll be the first to know about it. And also follow us on social media, inshallah. So once again, thank you all very much, and we'll conclude here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good evening.